Hi guys, welcome to my channel. I am Njoroge, a published author based in Kenya. If you're a returning subby, thank you so much for always clicking on my content. And if you're new here, karibu sana. Today I want us to have a little chat. I want to talk to anybody who has a business, especially like really small businesses. It could be a salon, you could be a content creator, maybe you're a photographer, you could be running a kiosk in your neighborhood. A lot of you actually have never set foot in a business class. I have 2 business degrees, a BCom and an MBA in strategic management from the University of Nairobi. But ironically, despite having attended so many business classes, the best advice I got about how to differentiate between revenue or sales and profit came from a chicken farmer. And I just wanted to share this story because, I just think it will help out some of you. The chicken farmer I'm referring to is the late Nelson Muguku Njoroge, and he came to be known as the Poultry King. And I interviewed him as one of the entrepreneurs that I talked to for my book, A Profile of Kenyan Entrepreneurs. And towards the end of our interviews, I asked him a question. Having reached the level of success that you have attained, what kind of advice would you give to young people? And he told me this story. Just to give you a bit of background for those of you who've never heard of Nelson. Nelson was a man who grew up being told he couldn't do things. I remember when he never went to university, but when he finished, I think, primary or secondary school, he went to work as an untrained teacher at Kabianga School. And the education officials there told him he would never amount to anything. He would only end up as an untrained teacher. And so what Nelson did, he bought 6 cuckoos, hens, which he was keeping at his house, which was at his backyard of the school compound. And that's how he started his chicken business, But long story short, because you can go and read the book, the important part that I want you to capture is that from 6 cuckoos, he grew that business into a multi-billion shilling business. He started the first African-owned hatchery in 1972. And at some point, because he became quite wealthy, and he pulled out his money. One day he went to his bank and he said he'd been approached by the owner of a building society, a small building society, who had asked him for some capital to help run his business. And Muguku decided to help him. His banker told him, "You're nuts. This is the biggest mistake you have ever made." Well, guess what? He went ahead and did it. And guess what that building society became? The present-day Equity Bank. Muguku became the single largest shareholder of Equity Bank, and at one point his nest egg in terms of shares in the bank was valued at 3 billion shillings. So when I tell you that, when he gives, so this is not Shiro talking, I'm channeling Nelson Muguku when I tell you this story. So this is what Kenya's Poultry King tells young people when they ask for the single biggest tip he can give when it comes to running a business. Give past tense. And it is so simple that even your grandmother who has never gone to school will have no trouble understanding this. So he would say, imagine your business is a water tank. Everybody has seen a water tank. A water tank has 2 pipes. The one at the top ni ya kuingiza maji. Then there's one at the bottom, usually attached to a small tap, and that's the one where you open when you want to use the water in the tank. So he said, how does the tank fill up? For the tank to fill, it means the amount of water entering the tank from the top has to be more than the amount of water you're using through the tap at the bottom. So you imagine, especially for those people who do rainwater harvesting, so you have the roof, and then you have installed gutters, and then there's a pipe which now leads all that water to the tank. So when it rains, that's the water that goes into the tank, and then of course you're using it for, maybe you're watering your garden, some people use it for farming, maybe you're giving it to your goats or your cows or your chickens, As long as there's adequate rainfall and you're using less than the amount of water that's coming in, then it means at some point that tank will fill and eventually it will overflow, probably forcing you to now get another tank to capture the overflow. So Muguku said that's how to think about your business. So you imagine, let me use the example of like a bakery. Maybe you're baking cakes in your kitchen and you're selling them on Instagram or on your website or whatever it is. So when you bake the cake, and you sell it to me or whoever else makes orders, that is money coming to the business, So you and your margin nakuja at the top of the tank, And then the water that you're using is to make that cake there are certain things that you have to have. You need the flour, you need the sugar, you need the eggs. Don't forget utilities. There's electricity, there's water. I said, if you're making it from your house, that is probably what you consider your business or your office. So rent counts as part of the cost. Okay, there's the transport. When you bring that boda guy or that delivery guy to come and deliver to your customers, all that is now the water coming out at the bottom. So the way to know that you have actually made money from your business is the amount of money coming in from that pipe at the top. Okay, you put that number down, and then now you calculate the amount of money you have used to generate this product or this service, and then when you subtract this number from the one at the top, that tells you whether or not you have made a profit. Now, why Muguku used to give this example is because a lot of, especially small businesses, especially young people, when they sell things, they get very excited, you know, when money is coming in, and they just assume, like, now you sell that cake, maybe you've made sales worth 10,000 in a week, and you assume all of that is profit, meaning that money is available to you to go and spend. And then they make the fatal mistake of not actually leaving enough money to continue running that business, and that's how people run into trouble. And this applies to any kind of business. It could be a kiosk, it could be a salon. So for instance, if it's a salon, when I come there and I do my hair for 1,200, maybe I do a pair and a money, okay, but you have to buy products, you have to pay your girls, you have to pay for that salon, you know, and all of the things that go into, you know, doing people's hair. So that's a very, very simple example. Then he took it a step further. Now that you know, okay, that for you to make a profit, it means the amount of water entering the tank has to be more than the amount of water leaving the tank. Okay, now let's come to something called borrowing. Okay, so you'll find maybe the rainfall has not rained well that year. Okay, so there's a drought, so there's no water entering your tank. So what do most farmers do? Maybe you go to your neighbor who has a borehole and he has a bowser. Okay, and then you go and tell him, can you help me out with some water? So he comes, anakuletea maji, anakumwagia ndani ya tank. And then you use that water now to give your cuckoos, or, you know, to plant your seeds and to water your sukuma wiki. And then at the end of the season, when you've harvested, you're able to pay him. That is what is called good borrowing, okay? Because there's this misconception that Muguku used to say, is that people think and assume that all borrowing is bad. But there's good borrowing and there's bad borrowing. So good borrowing is where you go and get money to reinvest in the business, okay? So when you don't have enough water in the tank, ya matumizi ya kawaida, you go and get water from somewhere, okay? And then you figure out how to pay that guy. Maybe you will agree on some kind of payment method. Maybe after you've harvested, he'll tell you, okay, from the harvest, give me 2-3 bags, okay, to compensate me for the water I have given you. Kind of like a barter trade, because there are so many ways to get compensated. It doesn't always have to be a cash transaction. Okay, the borrowing could be in form of you go to your SACCO or you go to your bank. That one is straight. The repayment is in form of interest. Okay, so that is good borrowing. Now, bad borrowing, and this is where he said again, a lot of young people or people who are very, very young in the business, hapo ndio wanapotea. He said bad borrowing, okay, is where you go and maybe get money you borrow from a Shylock, or you borrow from that SACCO or a friend, and then you go and spend the money with Njoroge. You know, you just go out, maybe you take a plane, you go to Dubai, South Africa, wherever, you know, you're buying clothes, you know, just basically nothing that has to do anything with the business. And that's the quickest way to kill a business. Okay, so that's the first step. Now you understand good borrowing and bad borrowing. Then he took it a step further, again coming to the tank. Once you have mastered the art of using less water that is coming into the tank, you now create a situation where there's an overflow. And again, if you've seen an example of a tank, when the tank jars, this water comes out, because otherwise the tank will burst. Okay, so now a prudent businessman knows when you have the overflow and now water is pouring out of the tank because it's too full, what do? They get a second water tank. Okay, it could be same size as this tank, smaller, it could even be underground, okay, but you need to capture that water. Okay, so now in terms of business sense, what that means is, okay, so now you're making real money, you have a constant cash flow is coming in, business is probably booming, you've controlled your costs, so now you actually have extra cash to spend. So what do you do with that money? Okay, there's somebody who, again, as I said, a lot of young people, this is the way Muguku put it. A lot of young people think of that as Njoroge money, meaning you jump on a plane and you've always wanted to go to Dubai, or you've always wanted to go to the Seychelles, and you climb a plane and you go and have fun. Okay, but again, that is all very well and good, but a prudent business person does what? That's where now you create something called a passive income stream. And in very simple term, all it means is this. That second tank where the overflow is going, okay, yeah, because now this tank ideally should not have that ile pipe ya chini ya kufungua, because remember, all your expenses, you're only using the water in the first tank. So the second tank inaingiza maji, but there's no water which is coming out. So ideally, that tank fills very, very, very fast, okay? What does that mean in shillings and cents? It means, okay, you take that money, okay, that profit from your business, you put it in a savings account, which is okay, but banks pay very little interest. It would be better to put it in like a fixed deposit account. Maybe you can put it in a unit trust. Maybe you can put it into a circle. And again, because as we said, this second tank is not supposed to have a tap, okay? So money is coming in, but money is not going out, which allows you, it grows very fast. So you imagine if you take it to a bank and you open a fixed deposit for 3 months, okay, then maybe they give you, for the purposes of just illustration, maybe they're giving you 10%, okay? So you've put in 10,000 or 100,000 and then you earn 10%, okay? Then they'll ask you at the end of the 3 months, what do you want us to do with this money? Do you want to take it out? Or do you want only to take out the interest, or do you want us to roll it over? Meaning put it back is inaendelea kuzaa, okay? So again, a prudent businessman who wants to do something with his life tells them, continue, let it continue earning interest, okay? So as I said, so, and you may remember you continue maintaining this first tank. So even as the water is increasing in this second tank, okay, it is still water is still coming in from the first tank. And then it gets to a point, it jazzes very fast, because again, as I said, there's no water coming out. So now you're able to fill a third tank, though this is now tank number C, okay? So now you're operating 3 tanks. Now you're in a very, very comfortable position. When Nelson Muguku reached that position, as I said, he was a chicken farmer, started with 6 hens, which he grew. At some point in 1972, he started a hatchery. People told him, you're crazy, no one has ever done that, but he went ahead and did it, and in the process became the first African to own a hatchery in Kenya, and he did very, very well. So all that is what now created, that's how he was filling his tank. So a good friend approached him at some point, I can't remember the date, but it's in the book. And this person was called James Mwangi, and he was running a small building society. So Mwangi comes and tells him, I have this fantastic business idea, okay? I got into this business, and I need someone to inject some serious capital. Now, this was happening at a time when a lot of African-owned institutions were collapsing. So Muguku saw sense in the idea, and he said, yeah. Hapa niko na maji kwa tanksi to me, itakusaidia? Mwangi says, yes, itanisaidia. So what does he do? He goes to his bank and he tells him, I want to withdraw this a huge amount of money and put it into a building society. The bank manager told him, you're crazy. This is the worst mistake you can ever make. Please don't do that. But Muguku went with his instincts and he said, no, I want to help my friend. So he did that. And it paid off. Okay, at the time we were writing that book in 2008, okay, when I was interviewing him, the book came out much later. Muguku became the single largest shareholder in Equity Bank, and his shares were valued at 3 billion. Okay, a man who never set foot in a business school, never went to university, did not do an MBA, was having MBA students were writing articles about him, case studies, thesis, just because of following this simple principle. Okay, focus on filling your first tank. Be prudent with how you use that water so that you get an overflow, so that it goes into the second tank, okay? Then that now you can put it into various things to give you passive, okay? What you call passive income. And then now you're able to put that into a third tank. So in Muguku's case, the money in the third tank, he invested in a business, okay? For some people, what they do is they wake up and they decide, they find a plot of land somewhere and they decide to build a block of flats. And they're able to do it without even going to the bank to get a loan. And then of course those apartments will give them rental income. So you see, pesa inazaa pesa ingine. Okay, so that's how you build generational wealth. So my key takeaways from Muguku's example of building a business using the water tank is: number 1, keep your costs low. Before you fill your first tank, that's the only way to fill that tank, okay? How much money you're using must be less than what is coming into the business, okay? It is important to be ready that when finally you're in a good position and money is coming in more than what you're using, you need to have somewhere to capture that overflow of water. And as I said, that could be anything. It could be a savings account, it could be a unit trust, it could be an FD. Just do your research, okay? And then put that money somewhere so it's actually earning money for you, okay? The third point is, and this one he was he re-emphasized and re-emphasized. Mwenjoyo money is never coming from the first tank. Mwenjoyo money is always from the second tank. Of course, there's Mwenjoyo in moderation where you can do things in an affordable way. But what he said is taking like loans to go on holidays abroad doesn't make a lot of sense. And unfortunately, we are seeing a lot of that these days. Especially, I think social media pressure is so high. Young people just want to keep up with, other their peers. They see doing all of these fancy things, and what they forget is a lot of these people are flossing with their father's money. Yeah, when you could be competing with a guy, you don't know where the money comes from. You don't know what he's done to earn it. You don't know. It could be maybe even a sponsor. Okay, so focus on your business and grow it slowly and organically, and eventually you'll be able to do whatever you want. And as I said, by the time now you have that third tank, you will be in a very, very good position, so that when someone like James Mwangi or his equivalent of your peers comes and tells you, I have this business idea, can you help me? You are able to actually do it. And that is how you end up investing in even areas where you are just earning money in your sleep. So your money is working for you 24/7. You don't have to be there actually running it, okay? Because your money is the one working for you. The last point, and again, this one he really, really emphasized. You never ever neglect your first tank. You don't delegate the management of your first tank. You run it yourself like you will be running it forever. And how he put it is like this. Young business people, again, we have this penchant, especially in Kenya. You start a business, it does well. You make a little money. Immediately you decide, I'm going to go and start a matatu. I'm going to run a matatu business. What do you know about running a matatu? What ends up happening is you're just making money for the kange and the driver and the police. So every jioni they come and tell you, oh, tulishuka na polisi, oh, tulienda central, gari imekwama, there's no money that day. Meanwhile, maybe you even took out a loan to get that matatu, okay? Then you decide maybe to run it yourself. So now you neglect the first business to now run this one. Ama because you have seen your neighbor is doing very, very well with import-export. Again, you don't know where this person is getting money from. Maybe it's even being washed. Someone is washing dirty money, but you decide this is the business to be in because that fellow seems to be doing very well going by his posts on Instagram or TikTok. So you jump into it feet fast, neglecting your first tank, and then what ends up happening, you end up losing money. So your first tank is your baby. You need to take care of it because you have done that business so well. You have built it from the ground up. You could probably teach a PhD class in that business. Okay, and as I said, doing is the learning. You don't have to have actually gone to a business school to do some of these things. Nelson Muguku never did nobody's degree. He probably never set foot in a business class. But yeah, people were happy. I wrote a book about him along with other business owners. Okay, journalists were always looking for him for interviews. How did you do it? Please tell us how you did it. And it is as simple as a water tank. So that's the message I wanted to pass to you today. I hope that helped somebody, and it applies to anybody who's running any kind of business. So thank you for spending time with me. I really do appreciate it. I'll catch you on the next one. Until then, remember, whatever you do, whatever life throws at you, you keep on dancing.